Welcome back to Sacred Healing and Enchantment, where we do deep level, soul aligned healing and talk all things embodied leadership and transformational work. I'm your host, Melanie, and today I'm so excited and honored to share a conversation with someone whose wisdom will leave you both inspired and hopefully activated in all the right ways, leaves you wanting to take action in your life for not only your healing, but for the healing of the world. I am joined today by Emily Anne Brant, who's a coach, educator, and advocate whose work bridges personal development and decolonization. And if you are new to decolonization, or maybe you've been in that realm for a while, this episode is for you. If you are wanting to do deeper level healing for yourself and the world, this episode is for you. I really believe anybody who works in the coaching industry or benefits from the coaching industry who experiences healing spaces in any capacity needs to be listening to this episode. Emily has a unique lived experience, not only within her own personal life, but in her professional life in the coaching industry. That means that she has brought something so needed to the industry, and I'm just really excited for you to hear this and for us to dive into it. We cover so much ground, and I want you to really allow yourself to soak all of the wisdom in and to be willing to be curious, not only about what Emily brings to the table, but your responses to what Emily brings to the table. And please know that however you respond to this in your body, in your heart, in your mind, I am here to connect with you. And so if anything comes up with you before, during, after this episode, you can always reach out to me. And I do hope that you connect with Emily as well. And I'm going to post all of her links in the show notes. And she talks about her offerings at the end of the episode. So listen to the end. It's going to be worth it. Have so much fun. And I'll see you on the other side.
Everybody needs to do this work because there is something called internalized colonialism or internalized oppression, which we all have. We've all been subject to this kind of quote unquote culture that is steeped in the ideology of white supremacy, which is colonialism is basically like a fancier word for white supremacy. We've all been just swimming in these toxic waters since the day we were born. And this includes Indigenous folks, Black folks, brown folks, otherwise folks of the global majority, which is another term to replace BIPOC or Black Indigenous people of color, because collectively we make up more than 80% of the global population. If you're gonna, I think, lump us together, you can use global majority as a more empowering term. But yeah, we've all internalized it. So sometimes there's a lot of Black, brown, Asian, Indigenous, other global majority folks who are perpetuating the same kind of harmful rhetoric or the same spiritual bypassing type of content and materials. And I was one of them. So I know that the stuff gets internalized and it's deep, and it takes a lot of intentional unlearning and relearning. And so I always have grace and compassion for everyone because it is a journey. And we were all born into these systems and these ideologies, and it's everywhere. It's baked into our school systems, healthcare, legal systems, police systems, and then it gets transferred into interpersonal relationships, and then it also gets internalized. So we all have these internalized subconscious and conscious beliefs of white is superior, able bodies are superior, straight, cisgendered people are superior, wealthy people are superior, and so on. We all have that internalized. So it's a lot of work to unlearn it, but we all have to do it.
I'm excited to sit with you at this moment in time that seems pivotal or malleable, perhaps, in that you have some big shifts happening.
I feel like as my friend would say, I'm in the goo I'm in like the cocoon and the goop before it turns into the butterfly, but I can feel some exciting changes happening. I'm like in the thick of it.
I actually feel pretty gooey myself.
Yeah.
I can vibe
You
with
feel
that.
me?
Yeah. Okay, I want to dive in and give you an opportunity to introduce yourself to those who are listening in a way that feels really authentic to you right now.
Sure, yes. Hello, listeners. My name is Emily. I use she, her pronouns. I am a Ganyanke Haga or a Mohawk woman from Gundeke or Tyendinaga Mohawk territory that is in so-called Ontario, in northern Turtle Island, or the land colonized as Canada. And I always say that I work at the intersection of like decolonization and personal development, which for a long time I think you might have said, or maybe even still, what do those things have to do with each other? And that's exactly my point, and that's exactly why my work exists. They really should have a lot to do with each other, and I'm sure we can get into some of that today. But yeah, I love bringing decolonization into the personal development, coaching, healing, wellness, spiritual spaces, and just making these spaces ones that are not only individually transformative, yes, more individually transformative, especially for Indigenous folks and folks of the global majority or BIPOC folks, but also making them places where they can actually be tools for collective liberation too. And this big, like, collective shift that I think more and more people are starting to tap into. So, as you can see, I'm really passionate about that, or as you can hear. And yeah, that's a little bit about me and what I do.
I love it. And what you do is such a gift. And I remember, I don't know, must have been over a year ago when I first came across your work. I was so struck by not only your courageousness, but your deep compassion in this, in the way that you were helping people understand, also giving people a place to belong, which is it's a fine line, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm curious about what that process has been like for you to walk on both sides of helping people understand how they're perpetuating these systems of harm while also helping them feel like they belong in space with you.
Well, thank you for that reflection. That means a lot to me. Yeah, I think that we need that balance if this work is going to be sustainable. I think that, and each to each their own, different educators have different styles and different ways of operating and different opinions. And each person brings their own lens and their own lived experience that it's going to, of course, impact the way that they show up. So I think that my medicine in particular, the way that I show up, it's influenced by both I didn't mention this when I introduced myself, but I have mixed ancestry as well. I think it's influenced both by my Indigenous lineage and my Mohawk lineage. And I also have Algonquin First Nation ancestry on my mom's side, but primarily settler ancestry. And so I am mixed ancestry. I have lighter skin and I have lived experience of being in a white, like lighter skin body. And so I think from that lens, I have more of an understanding for just the white guilt that can come with having white privilege of even though I am Indigenous, I in some ways have that privilege of being in a light skinned body, right? That is a privilege. So I'm always naming that. And I have that lens and kind of understanding of you don't know what it's like to be in a black or brown body and you still have the desire to do what you can to be in right relationship and to be a better ally and space holder and all of that good stuff. So I have that lens, but I think from my Indigenous, obviously there's a lot there from my lived experience as an Indigenous person, as a disabled person, and just wanting to seek more inclusive and healthy transformative spaces. But there's also a teaching that one of my elders taught me around tears and how emotions and tears are sacred. And so I'm not someone who gets upset with people or cuts them off or tells them to stop if they're crying when this work gets emotional, unless they are using tears in a manipulative way, which we can see to get out of accountability or whatever it is, like the white tears. But unless they're being used in that way, I always say tears are sacred and tears are welcome and all the emotions are welcome because this work is emotional. It does bring up a lot of fears, a lot of guilt, a lot of shame, a lot of sadness, a lot of compassion, and of course, it's emotional work. I just try to make space for that and then encourage people not to get stuck in that. Because I think, obviously, this work of decolonizing and unlearning racism, ableism, all the isms, this can't get done when we're stuck in guilt or we're stuck in shame. But what happens when that's shut down and it's no, you're not allowed to have your feelings. is that then people don't do the work because they're then stuck in the shame or the guilt or whatever it is. A lot to hold space for. And I think that's probably one of the reasons why I was just saying to you that I'm like, I don't know what the business is going to look like next year. I'm taking a bit of a break. It is a lot. And I do fully understand why a lot of educators are like, nope, I do not have space to make this about your emotions, especially if as a white person. But to me, it's a balance. And I guess, yeah, I don't know if that answers your question, but that's why I approach it that way.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I love that you answered that not only with your personal context, but the broader scope of what this looks like for people doing this work in the coaching industry. I'm there's so many questions, and I'm hoping we can get to a lot of them. But one of the things that I was really excited to talk to you about, because I've not heard hardly anyone else talk about this in this way, but getting into manifestation and then hitting a point where you're like, oh, wait, it's not right here. I've had my own personal journey with that, and I was so eager to hear more about what that experience was like for you, and
Oh,
also
well,
where you're at now.
yeah, I would love to hear more about your journey with it as well. But yes, if you were at the round table. So I tell my story from time to time about like how I came to doing this work of decolonizing coaching and personal development in manifestation spaces. And it's such a long story, but I'll try to like I'll try to make it
Yeah.
shorter. But essentially I grew up on a reserve. I went to school on the reserve and I was fortunate enough to grow up with some of our traditional teachings and language. And we learned a lot about it's really Haudenosaunee culture to learn about the importance of a good mind, the importance of gratitude, the importance of respect, inner strength, all of these amazing principles which we see a lot in the mindset space, in the manifestation space. A lot of it also has Hindu roots, I will say, like the law of attraction stuff. But anyway, I grew up like just with this understanding of the importance of gratitude and a good frame of mind. But then later in life was introduced to it through a white lens through teachers like Tony Robbins or Louise Hay or Jack Canfield. And there was all the teachings around whatever you think you become, or your thoughts become things, or your thoughts become reality, like all the classic manifestation teachings, right? And so it resonated with me probably because it's so similar to a lot of our Haudenosaunee teachings. But I was relearning it through this lens of all these white teachers, not really realizing at the time that these are all white, mostly men, and just really enjoying it. And then took it to the point where I started seeing that you could actually do this for a living and you could coach people on these principles of having a good mind and empowering themselves and overcoming limiting beliefs. And I was like, cool, this is so awesome. So I started coaching officially in 2019 and was always using these principles of manifestation or the law of attraction, right? Which is like attracts like. So positive thoughts attract positive things. And I was manifesting some like mediocre, some pretty cool stuff. Like I won a trip to LA, yeah, started my podcast. I launched my first course and got 7 students in. I got my first couple one-on-one clients. Like I was manifesting some pretty mediocre, not even mediocre, like some pretty cool things. But then as I kept coaching for years now, so now I'm like a few years into this, I noticed other businesses and other people doing the exact same work that I was doing. Their stuff was just like taking off. And it felt like they were just lapping me. And I was like, what is going on here? I'm doing all the work. I'm journaling every day. I'm like standing in the mirror doing these power poses and these affirmations. And I'm doing the shadow work, which is like looking at your limiting beliefs and your traumas and the things that might be holding you back. And I was never afraid to go there. And I was doing all this. And I'm like, why am I not? If this stuff is supposed to be literally magic, then why is it such a hustle? Like it was almost like a different kind of hustle, right? Or almost maybe probably too a bit of like manic manifesting, like hyper focusing on it. But that's what I was taught to do by all these spaces that I joined. So I joined like the retreats, Tony Robbins seminars, the coaching masterminds, spent lots and lots of money in the coaching industry. And yeah, so I was doing all the things and I'm like, why, if this is so magic, why is it like sticky and slow going for me? Shouldn't I be like a lot more wealthy by now? Shouldn't I have a lot more reach by now? What's going on? So I had a spiritual reading with a psychic who is using the Akashic records, and you can ask questions. And so, of course, I always want to know about business and money. And I was like, okay, what do I need to heal to get me to my next level in business? Because why is this so dang hard? Like, why am I so stuck? When's my big break coming? And Spirit said, you need to heal your self-worth, and it's related to like your Indigenous ancestry. And at this point in my life, I had moved off the reserve. I had been neglecting my indigeneity because that's what was safer to do in Canadian society rather than come up against racism, which I still did. But then being in a white passing body, I could choose if I want to expose my identity or not. And most days it was safer not. So I'd really neglected my Indigenous kind of roots and ancestry for a long time. I didn't grow up in ceremony. I didn't grow up going to Longhouse. Like some people on our reserve were lucky enough to, but many are like painfully disconnected because there's so much colonial trauma that keeps people from reconnecting. So I felt like not Indigenous enough to even
Mm.
hear that message from spirit. I was like, what? That can't even, you must have the wrong person. I'm not even Indigenous enough to have Indigenous self-worth wounds to heal. What are you talking about? And then Spirit was like, that's part of it too. It's like the not feeling Indigenous enough. And the more you go and embrace your whole self, the easier this manifestation will be. Because right now I was operating as half of a person. Like I was really neglecting this huge part of who I am because I was forced or I felt forced to assimilate and just like blend into white Canadian culture. Which obviously now that I say it, I'm like, obviously, how can you manifest as like half of yourself, right?
Mm.
We have to bring our whole selves. So that was like the big aha for me. And then I took this to the coaching container I was in at the time and was like, oh my gosh, I'm having this identity crisis. And I realized just how much racism and colonialism has impacted me, and I've just been operating as half of myself. And then no one, and this was a primarily white group of 20 or so women, and no one knew how to touch that conversation. So they
Mm.
just didn't. And the group just fell completely silent. The mentor just heart reacted with a heart emoji to my message and didn't
Oh no.
respond. And I was just like, oh, this feels really
No.
unsafe now.
Yeah.
Say more things, say more words. And the mentor never did respond. Eventually, a couple of my friends in the chat responded and were just like, oh my gosh, Emily, I don't understand what you're going through, but I can only imagine, and just holding you and sending you so much love. What do you need? And that was like, that was perfect. That's all I needed to hear. But I realized when the mentor didn't respond, I'm like, oh my gosh, you know what? I've never brought a conversation of race or colonialism into any of these spaces I've been in for the last 3 years. They've all been super white. We've never, and we've always been told not to talk about race or racism or divide or division because we're all one. And then it was, oh my God, this veil of colonialism is lifting. And I see how these quote unquote spiritual spaces have actually been tools for white supremacy and have been like telling us not to focus on the oppression and the racism and the harm. And who does that benefit? The people holding the power and privilege, right? So it was just this really sad kind of realization of how manifestation can be used, and spirituality and all these spaces can be used intentionally or unintentionally as tools for white supremacy. And so that's what I had to grapple with, and then ultimately led me to doing the work that I do now.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I feel as you're saying this, especially like the way you told that story, it just had this big like pinnacle at the end of like the reveal of coaching and spiritual spaces upholding white supremacy. And I can just feel within me the like warrior part of me that's, yes, please name this. Thank you.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
rising up. Yeah. Yes. So powerful. And so you had this big, I love that you talked about it, the veil lifting, right? The veil of colonialism lifting. So, how did you find your way back into spiritual work?
As one of my clients, actually, Jen Casey, just shared on my podcast, decolonization work has been the most spiritual work that I've ever done. And Jen said the same thing because there isn't a connection, a true connection with our spirits. when we are so disconnected from one another, which is what white supremacy does to us. Supremacy culture of all forms, but it all stems from colonialism. And if you want to learn more about that, get my free ebook or you can take my
Yes.
roundtable course because it literally takes days to explain all this, but in a way that you can actually wrap your head around if it's newer. Um, So I highly recommend if like even the word colonialism is new or decolonization, or you're like, wait, what even does that mean? But where was I going
Yeah.
with this? Oh, yes, spiritual work. So yeah, we can't, I've never felt more connected to my spirit than since doing decolonization work. And it started with myself. Of course, I didn't just jump straight into teaching people. I really had to uncolonize my own mind, uncolonize my own spirit, reconnect, reclaim my roots, reconnect with my ancestors. And this is something all people can do, no matter what your lineage is. You have ancestors who are healed and or of the highest good and light, who are rooting for you, who want you to do the things they couldn't do, break the cycles and patterns they couldn't break. But we can't really truly connect with that when we are not decolonizing and lifting that colonial veil, because that veil and that lens teaches us that, oh, it's just all about you as the individual and it's all about your mindset and it's all in the brain. And real spirituality is not all in the brain. Yes, your mindset matters. Yes, the subconscious mind is powerful. Yes, this work's important. But even if we look at our medicine wheel, which is from Anishinaabe culture, it's a wheel and it's got four quadrants, and they are mind, body, spirit, and emotion. And all of these have to be tended to. All of these have to be in balance. But the colonial way of kind of manifestation or spirituality is a lot of times just through the mind or
Mhm.
just through the body or just one way, but it's really, we got to be looking at all four areas. And so, yeah, I've never felt closer to my ancestors and closer to spirit. And I've never felt more in tune with my intuition because now I'm not just going by what is society telling me that my goals and visions and dreams should be, but it, like, why did I want that thing? Or why was that my goal? Is that really my goal? Who taught me that's what success looks like? And then really getting in touch with my true roots, my true self, my true desires. And since doing this work, like manifestation has never been so like magical. It's flowing way more powerfully than ever before. And so that's really, hopefully that's really encouraging for folks as well.
Absolutely. Oh, yeah, I fully agree with when you begin to do the decolonization work or the path of decolonization, it deepens the spiritual journey. And I've seen this with people of all different backgrounds from all around the world. I had a really beautiful moment with a client who is in one of my programs that is all about it's essentially like how to figure out your ancestors so that you're not un- unintentionally doing some spiritual appropriation of different cultures. But I call it a ritual facilitator training so that people are coming in and then I'm like, okay, but where are your people from and how can you connect to them? And I have a client who I love, and she has done a lot of she's from the Czech Republic, but she's done a lot of work in Egyptian spirituality and Kundalini, which Kundalini is from India. And I was sitting with her and I'm talking to her about these modalities and how she's bringing them out into her work. And I'm like, but that's really beautiful. But also, I would imagine there's something really beautiful in your ancestry too. What does that feel like? And she just was like, oh, I don't connect with the Czech culture. It's not for me. And I totally get that. But I'm like, yeah, so, but what about 200 years ago or
Yeah,
like a
that's
thousand
the
years
thing.
ago? Let's go back before communism. Let's go back before Christianity. What did that look like? And then she started remembering all these little divinatory tools that had been passed down, and tarot cards having a really, or card readings being a really important divinatory practice for the folks of Eastern Europe. And like she had this awakening, and this is like Eastern Europe white, you know?
Yeah.
And but then she's suddenly connecting with her indigenous roots and realizing, oh my gosh, my people have been on this land for thousands of years. And I think that's what a lot of white folks, or
Yeah.
I don't want to get into my whole story, but I can speak for myself. Like I've often sought out spiritual practices, whether it's through yoga or through, I do have some lineage to Turtle Island, but like through spiritual practices of Turtle Island or through other places. And then when I've been able to connect to my bloodline and my ancestors from all of the spaces they're from, I feel so much more grounded
Right.
and it really unlocks things. And that's, I think a lot of white people don't realize, or people with
Yeah.
mixed ancestry even don't realize the magic that's there for all of us and how we all come from an earth-based spiritual lineage at some point in time.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm so glad you highlighted that because I hear that a lot too, or like a lot of people with European ancestry are like, what if I don't like my ancestors? I don't want to connect with them. They're bad and evil and I don't want to connect with them. But same thing, I'm always reminding them, go way back because I've had to do the same work as well. And I've sat with my ancestors. I actually was having stomach issues because of my internal bloodlines are literally at conflict with each other.
Mm,
And so I had this beautiful session where I sat with a healer and a medicine person, Asha Frost, who I always talk about and love and adore. And we sat and we just went way back and what's here in the bloodlines and what are they saying? And I had to sit with both the Mohawk and the Algonquin ancestors and the European ancestors. And it actually showed me a lot of compassion for the European ancestors that I didn't have before, because what I heard was like, we're doing this out of fear. This is all we know. Violence is all we know. Scarcity is all we know. Is you have to fight or you're not going to get the space or the whatever it is. But they had a lot of remorse and they didn't want to necessarily be operating this way, but they didn't know any other way and they felt afraid of breaking away from that. And so then I asked them, if you go back, way back, how did your people relate to one another and to the land? And yeah, it was like we're all children of God and of this earth and we help one another and we like tend to the land and we respect the land and so it's very earth-based and it's very similar. So we do have more similarities than we do differences and we do all have those like you said earth-based connections, but just for some parts of our lineage or for some people's ancestors you got to go way back. And I also acknowledge that it's a lot of research and maybe more work because you don't know, like we all lost our original, some of us more recently than others, but we all have been like really disconnected and forced into this quote unquote culture, which I don't even know if we can call it a culture, but like the way our society operates now with almost no connection to the land, almost no connection to one another. It's all about the capitalism and the industrialism and how much can you produce and how much can you individually gain and grow. And so I understand why people seek something deeper and they're drawn to Indigenous practices or South Asian practices and cultures. And I do think you can embrace those if you do it respectfully and with reverence, but also your lineage has lots to tap into as well.
yeah. Oh, so beautiful and so empowering too, I think, for
Yeah.
folks. And healing the ancestral line. When you can go back that far, whether it is through research or through like deep meditation and ceremony, or ideally a combination of both,
Mhm.
you heal the ancestral line, I think, in both directions in
Yeah,
ways that we can't even are beyond our comprehension, which I think goes back to how you're saying like this work is the most spiritual work and that there is no separation.
truly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that you said it goes healing in both directions. That's so beautiful. That's so true.
Mm. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about spiritual bypassing
Okay.
and how you deal with that. So something that is really relevant right now that I've been in deep community conversations around is in response to the election here in the United States. And a lot of conversations that are like, no matter how you're or how you're dealing with this election, whether you're celebrating or you're grieving, you're welcome here, which is a stark juxtaposition. These are all from
Yeah.
the white women spiritual leaders.
Yeah.
Stark juxtaposition from the sacred leaders in so many different spaces, artists, creatives, spiritual workers, healers that I follow, who are in the global majority or have decolonization work just woven deeply into how they show up, and or how they show up. But I
Yeah.
feel like that's why I reached out to you, because I was like, Emily, am I missing something? Am I crazy?
Yeah.
Yeah. So do you want to speak to
Yeah.
what that experience is like? And then also we can talk about spiritual bypassing as a whole
Yeah.
too.
Yeah, it does. It does really tie into spiritual bypassing. So, first things first, whether regardless of who you voted for. And for context, I'm in Canada, so feel free to be like, shut up, Emily, you're in Canada. But I think US politics really like it does impact the whole world. And like my friend Melinda said, we need to stop like centering the USA as we're the center of the world. But it does impact a lot of things. And so I was following it closely. A lot of people, of course, around the world following it closely on the edge of our seats with this last election. I think regardless of which way you voted, right? Even if, because we know a lot of these multimillionaire coaches and almost like celebrity coaches at this point. They're like, yeah, they're like celebrities, ultra rich coaches. I think we can fairly guess that a decent amount of them might have voted for Trump, maybe, whether they did or they did not. I think it's important to acknowledge that a lot of people are hurting right now. And when you're in the business of helping people, which is what coaches are here to do, and healers and spiritual leaders, you got to care about humans. And what we're like to see things like it's okay if you're celebrating right now, you're welcome here, or nothing at all. What I saw was mostly nothing at all. No comments on the state of the world, no comments on how many people are hurting. You're just showing up again to show your Chanel bag or your trip to Paris or your champagne bottle. Really, that's read the room. That's not the vibe right now. People are scared. People are literally fearing for their lives. And so I wrote a blog post kind of addressing my thoughts after the election. And first and foremost, I wanted to just acknowledge that whatever fear I'm fearing, that there's people who are most impacted, like immigrants, transgender folks, two-spirit LGBTQIA. There's obviously folks of the global majority, a lot of people who are women who are most fearful, like literally almost everyone,
Yeah.
except maybe cis, white, rich men and apparently women who also voted. But like many people, very afraid, very unsafe, whose human rights are literally moving backwards now because of this, and whose rights will continue to move backwards, most likely over the next 4 years. You got to acknowledge that when when you're in the space of caring about humans, like it's sad that we even have to say this, but you should probably care about humans if that's what you literally do for a living and you feel called to doing. And so to me, the silence, even if it was just to say, hey, I want to acknowledge a lot of people are really hurting right now and really scared. And I don't know what to say except that I see you and I'm here. Or I'm with you and I'm afraid too, or I'm scared too, or whatever. But what we saw was a lot of silence. And then to your point, as you brought to my attention, people saying, whether you're celebrating or you're grieving, you're welcome here. I think that's a really unsafe move personally, because I'm really big on like community building communities that are centered around like shared values. So for me personally, I don't have any problems saying if you're celebrating right now, you're not a safe person for my community. You're not a safe person for my community members to be around. And I would not say it's okay if you're celebrating right now, you're welcome in my space, because my job is to protect the people in my space. And if somebody is celebrating something that is literally moving one of my clients and friends' human rights backwards or putting their lives on the line, then I'm sorry, but you're not safe and you're not welcome in this community, because I intentionally create communities that are centered in values of anti-oppression, anti-racism, and anti-racism and decolonization. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's my thoughts on that.
Yeah, so well said. And I think so I've been sitting with folks who really hold understanding of this sentiment of no matter however you're feeling, whether you're celebrating or grieving, you're welcome here. As I've been sitting with a lot of white women who have been like, I think that obviously 55% of white women voted for Trump, right? So we have to create a bridge of understanding and awareness, and we can't shut people out. And I don't agree with that statement. I also don't know if I have the answer to that, but I'm curious what your response is to it.
Again, I'm just gonna say the spicy thing. I
Yes.
think it's Sagittarius season. I'm a Sagittarius, whatever. I think it's like the bigger fear, and I think we were talking about this, is they don't want to lose 55% of their clientele. I think that's really the underlying motivation. You don't want to
Yeah.
lose 55% of your clientele. And if you're
Yeah.
fine and it helps you sleep at night, that maybe you're seeing it as being more inclusive. And I'm not saying just shut people down right away because they have different political views than you, but I am about creating safer spaces. And I just truly don't see how somebody who's celebrating right now could provide a safe space for the types of community that I'm building based on my personal values. I do understand that one of my clients actually said this in one of our calls. It's helpful to remember that we're all just like walking nervous systems. So sometimes when you have like, especially political views that are different, or yeah, just different views on sensitive topics, it's helpful to just sit and be like, oh, you're a nervous system and you just need to be heard right now. I don't need to agree. I don't need to disagree. But usually when someone's especially worked up, they just want to be heard and seen. So that is something, if we have capacity, that we could do. But I just think when it comes to creating like group programs or containers, especially, then we need to be a little more mindful and asking yourself, is it worth those extra dollars if you're putting possibly your own or your other clients like comfort, not even comfort, but like safety on the line?
Yeah.
I don't know.
The revelation I had post-election is I've got my start in the healing industry as a healer in a space that was social justice oriented, in which I was the only white woman on the team of 12 people. And it was intentionally oriented towards the global majority. And I was taught to show up as a leader by these folks who it was just like part of the thing.
Cool.
Yeah,
Nice. That
I
makes a
know.
lot
But
of sense.
yeah, but then I realized, oh my gosh, what a blessing that was. And not everybody has that. And that was a gift for me. And I didn't even realize that healing spaces weren't all like that. That just,
Yeah.
it was,
Yeah.
yeah, totally out of my consciousness. And so now I'm realizing, yeah, a lot of healing spaces don't have that intentional orientation. And even if they say these are our values, we're anti-patriarchy, we're decolonizing ourselves, but it's not interwoven through the work in the shadow lens and understanding how we ourselves are upholding these systems
Mhm.
outside of just patriarchy, it becomes perpetuating. So I think
Yeah.
I'm just sitting with like maybe the answer really isn't just making it clear like we don't have to shut out 55% of white women and any of the women in the global majority who voted for Trump, or anybody who holds values that are steeped in colonization, but to instead just say, okay, you want to do ritual and ceremony with me? Here's the value system. And like just making it
Yeah.
really inherent to it so that there's no questioning.
Yeah. And I think just having those community values in place and then having what's the protocol if these values are not being respected, right? If I talk about
Mm.
decolonization in my work, or we do have someone who wants to talk about an experience of racism, what things are in place that if somebody says something harmful or is out of line, then what's going to happen? Do I actually have a policy in place where I'm like, as per our agreements, I'm going to have to ask you to leave this Zoom call because we need to honor the well-being of the people that we want to center. If your value is to center the most marginalized voices, or to weave in those values of anti-oppression. So I think that's what a lot of people don't realize is I hear a lot from white women who are like, yeah, I have my values, but I can't control how my community, what they're gonna say. I can never control what these other white women, like I'm not the problem, but these other white women might just be like loose cannons, who knows? And it is up to you. Like being a leader, it's a huge responsibility. And holding a community space is also a massive responsibility. And so it is up to you as the leader to set those standards and those boundaries in place. And then what are you going to do if they're not respected? And I also think the more you do weave it into your work and you're talking about it in your messaging, it's everywhere. It's not just in your closed containers, then you're going to start attracting different people. You can see, it's funny how I can see now in people's audiences. Oh, it is evident that you are not doing this work, at least not anywhere publicly, and your people are like, they're the ones that are like, don't talk about race, that's divisive, that's divisive, and we're all one, and don't go into the blame game, don't go into victim mentality. They're really attracting those type of people versus their friends who have been working with me for a while and are doing this work, and they're attracting just a different people with different values. It just depends who you want to work with too, and really truly what you do value. But I will say, I wanted to mention that I didn't mention earlier, when we are just focusing on patriarchy, and for white women especially, when you're not focusing on like truly decolonizing and all the oppression that has been done and is done, not just to women, but to Black, Brown, Indigenous folks specifically, you are cutting yourself off from your own humanity. And that is why you go into those containers and you're like, oh, this is so great. And it is. There's so much goodness to a lot of these spaces in this work, which is what makes it like, oh, but there's so many nice elements. But then you're still going to be like, but something's missing. Something's off. Or like we were talking about, but I still feel like I'm not totally connected to my intuition, or something's like the needle's not moving how I want it. It's because you're disconnected from your humanity. And that's what that kind of veil of colonialism does. And it's never going to feel fulfilling. Even if you go into these spaces and you learn how to make all this money, which is what a lot of these spaces are centered around, you learn how to build all this success or wealth or whatever it is, whatever success means to you. And then you're still like, something's missing. And it's that connection, it's that humanity. So we can only get there through decolonizing. Everybody needs to do this work because there is something called internalized colonialism or internalized oppression, which we all have. So essentially we've all been subject to this kind of quote unquote culture that is steeped in the ideology of white supremacy, which is colonialism is basically like a fancier word for white supremacy. We've all been just swimming in these toxic waters since the day we were born, and this includes Indigenous folks, Black folks, Brown folks, otherwise folks of the global majority, which is another term to replace BIPOC or Black Indigenous people of color, because collectively we make up more than 80% of the global population. If you're gonna, I think, lump us together, you can use global majority as a more empowering term. But yeah, we've all internalized it. So sometimes there's a lot of Black, Brown, Asian, Indigenous, other global majority folks who are perpetuating the same kind of harmful rhetoric or the same spiritual bypassing type of content and materials. And I was one of them. So I know that the stuff gets internalized and it's deep, and it takes a lot of intentional unlearning and relearning. And so I always have grace and compassion for everyone because it is a journey. And we were all born into these systems and these ideologies, and it's everywhere. It's baked into our school systems, healthcare, legal systems, police systems, and then it gets transferred into interpersonal relationships, and then it also gets internalized. So we all have these internalized subconscious and conscious beliefs of white is superior, able bodies are superior, straight, cisgendered people are superior, wealthy people are superior, and so on. We all have that internalized. So it's a lot of work to unlearn it, but we all have to do it.
Yeah. I feel like when you're operating in spaces, and I've had what I now recognize as an extreme privilege to be in spaces of people of all different races doing this work together, it is so equally like activating and also like in the best way though. Like it brings you into the shadows in a way you can never do just by yourself on your own in therapy. Like it's not gonna happen.
Yeah.
You have to be sitting with people. And I can speak to my experience as a white woman, like sitting with people and witnessing people in the global majority talk about these systems. It just creates this sense of reverence that you don't have otherwise. And that reverence becomes a gift that you get to carry into all of your relationships. And as a leader, it's so interesting to me I totally get what you're saying. If you can enter a space and by the audience or like the talk, like the way somebody talks, you can tell like where things are aligned. It's not hard to have full color in your space because global majority, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? I'm like, actually,
Yeah, no, literally. It's so that's what that if you are listening and you're like, I don't believe you that white supremacy exists in coaching,
oh,
literally go to a retreat, go to a mastermind, go to a group and look at who's in the room. Because if it's a global business and Black, Indigenous, Brown, Asian folks make up more than 80% of the population, but these spaces are like 95 or more percent white. Hello. That's your clue right there.
yeah. But I think maybe leaders out there of any race and any background and any culture who are wanting to do this work, and maybe there are folks who are like, you know what, it's not about getting like a token person or
Mhm.
diversifying my space
Yeah.
because it looks good,
Yeah.
but because you want the richness. Like it provides, as I said, like a reverence and a richness that is so profoundly healing. That's the perfect opportunity for people to work with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. We add a lot of richness to the space and we need to be safe and properly cared for and met in a way that meets our unique ancestral and cultural needs. So it's obviously you know this, but I'm just reiterating this for the listeners. It's not about collecting as many diverse clients as you can, but what are you actually doing to do your own unlearning and learning? And then, like you were saying, Melanie, of weaving those values into every step of your work. That's really what I help people do so that it's like at every point of your business, from your like social media and your marketing to your onboarding process to your coaching sessions to how you hold group spaces to how you even do transactions and do business with people, that this is all coming from an anti-oppression and a decolonized lens, which honestly it makes, if you want your business to improve, this makes for the best business because this is a model that feels good for everyone. It rebuilds the integrity that's been so missing in this industry, and it does so much repair, it does so much reconciliation, that it's just, of course that's good for business, but it will feel so good for you too as the business owner. So that's what my like signature program, the Decolonized Coach community, is all about. It's like, how do you weave this into every single element and step of your business? And it's not about being like, oh, I'm changing my niche now. I was a mindset coach, but now I guess I got to be a decolonization coach and teach people about racism. No, you don't have to be the expert on that. It's about weaving it into what you're already doing.
I love that. Yeah. And it is really a continued education, right? Just like every other part of spirituality, there is no endpoint. And there are times when
Yeah.
all of us mess up
Yep.
and accidentally say something we didn't mean to, or in a way that we didn't want to, or all the things.
Yep.
And
Yep.
I imagine that part of your work is helping people learn how to repair after that within themselves and collectively.
Yeah, definitely. We have live calls twice a month, and so that's often something we talk about, or just like how to address things as they come up that maybe weren't in my 6 modules of curriculum, but like the real things that come up. And I'm always learning and unlearning as well, and I'm always clear like I'm on this journey with you. There's no experts here. There's no like authoritarian vibe because that's also very colonial. It's like a peer-to-peer thing, and yes, I can share from my knowledge and my experience and my lived experience, but I'm learning with you. And so I just shared an example the other day of how I did a post that harmed somebody because it was just a small snippet from that blog post. And it was talking about the message I got from Spirit, which was that maybe Trump winning is what has to happen for the whole empire to crumble. And so
Mm-hmm.
many people were like, yes, I loved that part of your blog. Like I got a lot of messages about that. So that's why I pulled that snippet and posted it on its own. But then some like people were reading it on its own as just, oh, so you're just taking this zoomed out like spiritual view of, oh, this is all happening for the higher good, and you're disregarding how many people are going to be killed and harmed in the process. And it feels like you're spiritually bypassing. And I was like, Oh my gosh, you're so right. It absolutely does. I should not have shared it without the other context. It was just a small snippet from the blog, but I had to reach out and do some repair because I care about that relationship and obviously don't want to hurt anyone. But I could have made it all about my ego and be like, oh no, you're misunderstanding me. Like, how dare you? Could have got defensive. But because of this work that I've been doing, and maybe I would have reacted that way even a couple of years ago, but because of this work I'm doing, and therapy, I was able to just actually have a really beautiful conversation and then repair in real time and then model to people like this is what repair and real relationships can look like. So you can get it wrong because you can always make it right.
Mm,
You don't have
I
to
love
be
that.
fearful.
Yeah. Oh, you can get it wrong because you can always make it right. That
Yeah.
is so beautiful. Yeah. And the defensiveness piece, like, as you were saying that, I just had a revelation myself of realizing how doing like the undoing racism work. And actually, I meant to say this earlier, like, it is helpful to be in spaces that are primarily people of your race when you're doing the undoing racism work. Like, if you want to be in what's called an affinity group, or it can be helpful if you feel like you need to like ask some really uncomfortable questions.
Yes. Yeah, without harming the other people in
Yeah.
the room. Yeah.
Yeah, that can be, but otherwise, like, it is, I find a richer experience to be in diverse spaces. It, like, that's a side note. But the defensiveness piece, when you sit, I found that like the more I sit in this work, the easier it is to not be defensive in all of my relationships, right? And
Yeah.
like with my husband or with my 3-year-old son, like I'm quicker to repair, apologize, and mend. And what a gift that is for me and for everybody in my life.
Mhm.
And that comes
Yeah.
out of this work.
It does. It really does. Yeah, I've noticed it as well in my relationships and actually some of the clients in DCC or I don't like the word clients. I'm trying to find a new word for it because it feels
Community
colonial.
members.
Yeah, community members. Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you. A lot of the community members join the DCC actually because they want to be able to better relate to their child who just let them know that they're non-binary or
Mm-hmm.
whatever the case is. Like a lot of them signed up so they could have better relationships and conversations and navigate kind of the more difficult conversations. And we're seeing some really beautiful shifts come out of it. So yeah, you're so right.
Mm.
So true.
Yeah, I'm really eager for folks to connect with you. So, where can people find you?
And thank you. The best way is probably on my website or on Instagram. So the website is emilyannbrant.com and it's Emily, EMILYANNE, and then BRANT. And on Instagram, I'm at Emily Anne Brant as well. So those are the places I hang out the most. So that's probably the best way.
Great. And I'll link that in the show notes. And then also people can, the freebie that you talked about is a freebie that I've downloaded. I definitely recommend it. So maybe I'll link that as well in the show notes with your permission.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And the roundtable I've participated in, 10 out of 10 recommend. I've watched some of the past ones and also the one that was just live and enjoyed both of it, both times. I recommend that. And then people who want to go deeper can join the Decolonized Coach community.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Great. Love it. Thank you so much for your time and energy and perspective. This has been such a gift. And I'm really grateful for it.
Oh, thank you, Melanie. I appreciate it.
What an incredible conversation that was with Emily. Her journey of reclaiming her roots while weaving decolonization into personal development is so transformative and so needed in our industry. If you're ready to take this work deeper, you can, of course, reach out to Emily with all of her offerings. She has her free offerings, the roundtable, and the Decolonized Coach community. I'm sure that if you connect with her and you have any questions, that she'll be able to lead you into the right direction for what the best opportunity is for you. And if you want to work with me, my signature program, The Sacred Method, starts this January. It's a 7-month journey designed for healers, coaches, and spiritual leaders to combine deep spiritual healing with transformational business strategies. It's like a mastermind and new methodology training in one. I don't see anything like this in the industry anywhere else. I'm so excited for you to check it out. So you can head to the show notes or DM me for the link. I'm at Melanie Rose Monaco on Instagram. I know that this work can be really activating. So again, I want to encourage you to reach out to me if you need anything at all. And I just want to thank you so much for being here for another episode of Sacred Healing and Enchantment. Keep doing the work, weaving your magic and shining your light. Until next time, I'm just sending you blessings and gratitude.